Putin just unlocked access to a 2 million strong reserve army hidden in Russia's civilian database. By October, he's planning to grab 500,000 of them and send them into a war that's already eaten 1 million soldiers.
In late 2025, Putin's government passed a law that flew under the radar of most international coverage. On paper, it was mundane. The Russian Ministry of Defense would gain access to the Civil Registry data so it could better provide social support to military personnel and their families. Sounds like bureaucratic efficiency, right? Wrong. On July 27, 2026, when that access was formally granted, Militarny reported what it actually meant. Putin had handed his military and National Guard a master key to Russia's civilian
and database. Names, addresses, health records, employment history, everything on millions of Russians was now accessible to the men tasked with forcing people into uniform. Before this law, finding reservists meant digging through provincial records, outdated military roles, and fragmented systems. Now, Russia can pull up any reservist's complete file in seconds. The infrastructure for mass forced conscription is now fully operational. That's not bureaucratic streamlining. That's a war machine preparing to swallow 500,000 people whole.
The real reason Putin needs this database access isn't forward thinking. It's desperation. Russia's volunteer recruitment system is already failing. The numbers don't lie. Between December 2025 and April 2026, Russia recruited 148,400 soldiers, but lost 156,735 in combat and accidents. That's a shortfall of over 8,000 in 5 months. By mid-2026, Ukraine's intelligence and Zelensky's own accounts put the picture even darker. 225,500 Russian casualties in the first 7 months of 2026, against only 221,000 new recruits. Russia is losing more soldiers than it can replace every single month. The volunteer well is running dry. This isn't a recruitment problem that will fix itself. June 2026 alone saw 39,490 Russian casualties in a single month. That's not an outlier, it's the new baseline. If volunteer recruitment can't keep pace with that, then Putin has no choice. He either ends the war, or he forces more people into it. And we already know which way he's leaning. Picture a 45-year-old Russian factory worker pulled from his assembly line in a provincial town. He's handed conscription papers on a Monday. By Friday, he's in a cramped barracks with 200 other draftees, most of whom have never held a rifle. A sergeant runs them through the basics. Strip and reassemble your weapon. Aim at the target board. March in formation. 5 days. Total. Then they're loaded onto trucks headed for Ukraine. What awaits them is a landscape of drone-infested fortifications and artillery barrage. As they have no idea how to navigate, Zelensky warned exactly this in July. He will send poorly prepared people to the battlefield, and this in turn means heavy losses. The Institute for the Study of War confirmed in May 2025 that Russia had begun sending barely trained recruits into assaults, not to hold ground, but to soak up bullets and force Ukraine to burn through ammunition and drones. Conscripts become casualties in waves. Putin isn't building an army, he's building a meat grinder, and he knows it. Here's the puzzle that took until July 2026 for Ukraine to figure out. Why is Putin announcing a 500,000-person mobilization in late July when he could start immediately and claim victory? The answer is politics. Between September 18 and September 20, Russia will hold State Duma elections, the first since Putin invaded Ukraine. The New Eurasian Strategies Center reports that 450 deputies will be elected via party lists and single-member constituencies. Here's the critical part. The United Russia Party, Putin's political machine, is campaigning openly with Putin for the first time in nearly a decade. By 2 decades, according to the Financial Times, Putin desperately needs a strong result to show that his regime still commands the country's support. Unleashing mass conscription before those elections would trigger protests, strikes, work stoppages, and a mass exodus of military-age men fleeing the country. Exactly what happened in September 2022. So Putin waits until October, after his party wins. Then the mobilization trap snaps shut. By the time ordinary Russians grasp what's happening, voting is over, and dissent is already criminalized by the newly re-elected National Guard.
If you're watching this, you already know that mobilization is coming. Subscribe and enable notifications. You'll see the moment it happens before most of the world catches on. Foresight covers what's next before the headlines do. September 2022. Russia mobilized 300,000 reservists after the Ukraine invasion completely stalled. It was supposed to be clean, orderly, a show of national will. Instead, it became chaos. Reports indicate that Russian regional recruitment offices were swamped with families demanding to know why their fathers, sons, and brothers were disappearing into uniform. Videos spread on Russian social media of women blocking military buses, weeping and begging. According to Newsweek, tens of thousands of Russians fled the country entirely, driving to Kazakhstan, Georgia, Turkey, anywhere to avoid
The draft. And that was when public support for the war was still relatively high. Even with 2022's state propaganda machine running at full volume, mobilization sparked mass protests across Russian cities, from Moscow to Rostov. Now, support for the war has collapsed. A July 1 poll by Ukraine's Institute of Conflictology found that 81% of Russians want an immediate end to the war, and 73% of those surveyed oppose a second mobilization. When Putin announces 500,000 new conscripts, he won't face 2022's chaos. He'll face outright rebellion, and he knows it.
Here's the trap Putin is walking into with open eyes. Russia's economy is already in free fall before he mobilizes 500,000 people. The state budget deficit has ballooned to nearly $77 billion as Putin's war spending spirals completely out of control, according to United 24 Media. The Kremlin is now begging the central bank for emergency loans just to cover the gap. At the same time, Russia is facing a labor shortage at historic levels. Factories are short-staffed, construction sites can't find workers, and foreign businesses are exiting because there's no guarantee Russia can supply
by the workforce. Now add 500,000 conscripts pulled directly from the labor pool. Those aren't abstract soldiers. Those are 500,000 production workers, truck drivers, electricians, nurses, and engineers yanked out of the civilian economy and sent to die in Ukraine. Russia's entire economy collapses under this weight. Inflation spirals, wages collapse, foreign investment evaporates overnight. Putin won't just lose soldiers, he'll lose Russia's ability to function. And within 12 months, every ordinary Russian will feel it in their wallet and their grocery stores.
Russia's collapse won't stay inside Russia's borders. A destabilized nuclear power with 6,000 warheads and a humiliated autocrat is everyone's problem. Start with the obvious: refugee waves. After September 2022's partial mobilization, hundreds of thousands of Russians fled to neighboring countries. Now multiply that by the scale of 500,000 conscripts and a population that already despises the war. Turkey, Georgia, Kazakhstan, the EU's eastern border, all will face Russian asylum seekers fleeing an imploding state. But refugees are just the opening act. A cornered Putin facing domestic coup?
Collapse tends toward desperation, and desperate leaders escalate. Strikes inside NATO territory become more likely as Putin tries to shift blame outward. Cyber attacks on European infrastructure will intensify. Nuclear rhetoric, already a constant feature, will transform from threat to bluff to demonstration. A desperate Russia is a dangerous Russia. This isn't some distant geopolitical abstraction. When Putin mobilizes 500,000 soldiers and sends them to die in Ukraine, he's lighting a fuse that reaches into Europe, into NATO, into your security.
Here's what Putin won't admit, but his inner circle already knows. This mobilization isn't a comeback strategy. It's an admission of defeat. Putin went into Ukraine in 2022, promising a lightning victory, regime change in Kyiv, and a restored Russian sphere of influence stretching to the Baltic. None of it happened. Donetsk isn't captured. The Black Sea Fleet is being methodically destroyed. The economy is hemorrhaging. Ukraine is stronger militarily with each passing month. By any objective measure, Putin's war has already lost. But Putin can't end it. To admit defeat would mean
Singh. He gambled with his entire country and lost. And in a police state, that's a death sentence. So instead, he doubles down. 500,000 more soldiers to buy himself 6 more months of political air, to delay the moment when Russians finally realize they've been bled dry for a war that's already over. It's survival desperation disguised as victory. And it won't work. The mobilization won't win the war. The collapsed economy will strangle his regime from within. When Russians finally grasp the scale of the sacrifice, Putin's time runs out.
This has been The Military Show. If this video gave you insight into what's coming in Russia and Ukraine, subscribe and enable notifications so you never miss it. Next up, we're analyzing what happens to Russian military strategy when the mobilization actually begins.